My name is Jack Shanahan, Vice Admiral, U.S. Navy, retired. One of our nuclear bombs blows up Hiroshima 15 times over. 5 devastates Russia. After that, this is how many the U.S. has left. I feel safe reducing nuclear weapons. Do you?
Hackers are the outlaws of the computer age. Snooping, stealing, spreading viruses. No one has a good word for them today.
Good evening. America's computer systems are under attack.
The Pentagon was coming under the most sustained attack it has ever known from computer hackers. Now, Matthew, last year, I understand you nearly started a war between North and South Korea because of your computer hacking. Just first of all, could you have got into the Pentagon as these people did?
Well, the Pentagon is just a computer system like any other. The fact that it is a target and is the head of the top world power just makes it even more so a target. There are plenty of computer systems out there, and the Pentagon is not unlike any of the others. You would think that they would have a bit more protection perhaps on their computer systems, but this isn't necessarily the case.
The problem was that the American military do not secure their computers very well. But you also have to remember there are over 2 million military computers. Many of them are actually PCs very similar to the sort we see in this office and that we have in our homes.
Hi there. Okay. Here's your list of charges. You hacked into the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Department of Defense and NASA. Okay, so how did you go about hacking into the computers to find what you were looking for?
Well, unlike the press would have you believe, it wasn't very clever. I searched for blank passwords. I wrote a tiny Perl script, the Perl language, that tied together other people's programs that searched for blank passwords, so you could scan 65,000 machines in just over 8 minutes.
So you went and actually accessed 65,000 machines sitting on, I guess, 65,000 desks in different buildings?
No, because all 65,000 aren't necessarily live yet. You might find typically 5,000 might be live, and out of that 500 might be Windows machines, then 50 might have blank administrator passwords, which is a pretty bad ratio for the world's largest military.
So you're saying that you found computers which had a high-ranking status, administrator status,
Yep.
which hadn't had their passwords set, they were still set to default?
Yeah, precisely. And in some cases it was thousands of machines because they had an image. Rather than install Windows off a CD at every machine, you blat it onto an image, stick the image in all the machines, and every single machine has a blank local administrator password. So.
And you actually eventually took control of one particular machine on a desk somewhere in NASA, is that right?
Well, I mean, I had control of every machine that had a blank administrator password because the door was open. So.
Were you the only hacker to make it in, past the slightly lower than expected lines of defence?
Yeah, exactly. There were no lines of defence. There was a permanent tendency of foreign hackers. You could run a command when you're on the machine that showed connections from all over the world. Check the IP address to see if it was another military base or whatever, and it wasn't. The General Accounting Office in America has again published another damning report saying that federal security is very, very poor.
So let's get this straight. While you were on a machine inside one of these computers in the Department of Defense, say, there were other hackers logged onto that machine as well, from around the world?
Yeah, you run your netstack command and you see the list, Turkey, Germany, Holland, everywhere.
Are they all being prosecuted?
No, because they weren't caught. I'm assuming. I mean, they could have turned out later on to be someone else that's been caught, but not as far as I know. I think that probably, because the security was so poor, it's probably foreign governments.
Over what kind of period were you hacking into these computers? Was it a one-time only? Was it
for
the course of a week?
A couple of years.
And you went unnoticed for a couple of years?
Oh, yeah. And yeah, so you're doing it at night time, so hopefully there's not many people around. But there was one occasion where a network engineer saw me and actually questioned me, and we actually talked to each other via WordPad, which was quite strange. That was very, very strange.
What did he say? What did you say?
Well, he said, "What are you doing?" which is a bit, shocking. I told him I was from military computer security, which he fully believed. and we had a little chat, and he tried to impress me with his virus knowledge and going into a DOS box, a console and stuff, and that was quite strange, talking to someone who's in charge of the place where you shouldn't be and then not realising that you shouldn't have been there. Sure, my case heavily affected the new cyber crime laws in America. I think they're peeing their pants. They're incredibly scared that their computer systems are so easy to get into. And so rather than stop the bad practice and increase the security or employ proper IT people instead of training up military personnel, they're trying to scare everyone away from not doing it.
To the broadcast tonight, Senator Sam Nunn on the Pentagon's vulnerability to computer hackers.
And about 250,000 attempts to get into the Pentagon computer systems in 1 year, about the average of that, and about 65% of those are successful, and of those successful ones, about 27% of them are detected, and only about 4% of those that are detected are reported.
Tell me about the case of the data stream cowboy.
Well, what we've got here is the Rome Air Force Base case is the one we heard about yesterday. And in that particular case, there was a young fellow, 16, 17-year-old in England that had taken over, in effect, the Griffiths Air Force Base Rome laboratory computers, and from those computers where they had really gained control, they were able to get into other systems like NATO headquarters, like NASA, like even the South Korea Atomic Energy Agency. And from all appearances, if you were in a foreign country, like South Korea, you would have thought that it was Rome Air Force Base going into your system. So one of the huge problems here is that many of these hackers have learned to go through 8, 10 different systems, sometimes more than that, and many different countries before they ever really download data from a particular system. There was a partner in this, and it was an electronic partner. The young man did not even know the other person, but electronically they were in communication, and an awful lot of the material was downloaded or dumped to this other person. It was extremely difficult to even find the origin of the attack, and it turns out that particular hacker was linked in with the KGB. So what appeared to be a 16-year-old hacker really was being sponsored by or paid by and gotten the information by the KGB. And so that's the kind of thing you run into. And one of the great dilemmas here, Charlie, is in terms of law enforcement versus CIA or NSA jurisdiction, until you get to the end of the search and find who the perpetrator is, you really don't know the country of origin. You don't know whether it's domestic or not because of all the ways of going through computers, and therefore you don't know who can be in charge of the investigation, or even whether we can bring to bear agencies like the CIA and NSA that are not supposed to be involved in any way in law enforcement domestically.
But it seems to me that when you read these stories, that the threat is catastrophic if, in fact, these hackers are driven by nefarious ambition and really want to wreak havoc with America in terms of what they can do.
You're right.
We're in.
Shall we play a game?
How about global thermonuclear war?
I have 7, correction 8. That's 8 redbirds, 2 degrees past apogee.
Better get the old man down here. Sir, we have radar tracking. 8 inbound Soviet ICBMs, already over the pole, estimated impact 11 minutes, confirmed target area western United States.
SAC, this is Crystal Palace. SyncNORAD has declared DEFCON 3. Scramble all alert aircraft.
I repeat, scramble all alert aircraft.